Welcome back, Bear fans, to the Windy City Bears Network, where I'm your host, RC. I just want to do a quick video on what we could possibly still do in free agency. We don't have a lot of cap space. We have roughly, it says, about 6 million. Some people still want us to pick up a running back, which I don't think that's something that we will do. I think they want to go with the guys we have. Roschon Johnson, 4th-round pick last year. Kyle Monangai, 7th-round pick this year. And Swift. A lot of people are not giving Swift any credit. He didn't have a fantastic season. He had an okay season last year, but the offensive line is a lot better this season, at least on paper. So I think he's going to get his opportunity this season. We're paying him a decent amount of money, $8 million a year. So I think he can have a very good season this year. If he's used right, which I think he will be. I think Ben Johnson knows how to utilize different backs in different situations. I know he didn't have a big role with Ben Johnson in Detroit, but this a couple years later and different situation. But for us right now, looking at what we should probably do is we definitely need another defensive end. We didn't draft one in the draft. Turner is going to be a D tackle. He's going to pretty much stay inside. When we drafted him, I knew he was going to be probably a 3-tech. He's aggressive. He's quick. He had played some defensive end in college, but that's not why they drafted him. They drafted him to play D tackle. And then Deo, who I still think we overpaid, about $17 million a year for him. He's going to kick inside and outside. So to me, if you were going to spend that type of money, you needed to get a defensive end. He's a guy who can rotate, but that's all we really have. We have Sweat on one side, and then on the other side, still a question mark in my mind. And when you're spending that type of money, you would assume that it would be fixed. So a couple of guys that I'm looking at that are still available in free agency that may not break the bank, and they're a little older. And these guys at this point would probably be more rotational guys. I'll start from the bottom to the top. So my third option would be Matt Judon, who we almost traded for last year. He went to Atlanta, didn't have a great season with them. They drafted, obviously, 2 defensive ends. He won't be back in Atlanta. He's 33 years old. He's a guy I think that has some juice left. Like I said, we're not looking for a guy who's going to just get, 40, 50 snaps. Maybe a guy who's going to get about 30 snaps and rotate, but somebody who can be effective on third downs. Like I said, he'd be my last option out of these top 3 guys. My number 2 option would be Clowney, Jadeveon Clowney, sorry. And he's 32 years old. Carolina just cut him. And, it seems like every other year he puts up about 9 sacks. So he had like 9 sacks year before. Last year he had 5.5. He still wants to prove that he can still play. I think he is a guy who can come in and really step in and play well, especially on certain situations. I'm not sure exactly how much money he would be asking for. I'm assuming he would still want somewhere between 6 and 8. But maybe you can give him a contract with a lot of incentives. But my number 1 guy who I would go after is Darius Smith, who played for Detroit last year. He actually played well. They picked him up late, and he made some pretty big plays when they needed to late in the season. He's played for the Packers. He's played for the Vikings. He's played for everybody but Chicago. He would be my number 1 guy. At 32 years old, I think you could probably get him on a very reasonable contract. I think you can get him for anywhere between maybe 4 and 5 million, possibly less if you put incentives in. And I know he's itching to sign with the team. So if you were able to make a offer to him, I'm sure he would probably just take it at this point. But he's a guy who can rotate, plays with aggression. I think a guy who would fit well and knows the division. And that's a big thing. He's played against all these teams. He knows these players. And that's why he'd be my number 1 guy. Now, dream scenario, Trey Henderson's available for a trade. What would you have to give up? Probably a 2nd-round pick. And how much money is he going to demand or at least want? I don't think he takes anything less than probably 27 million, you know, which is still reasonable for what he's done the last couple of years, over 17 and a half sacks last 2 years. He's worth probably more, but at the age of 30 and you're giving up a draft pick and he's making, I think, 21 this year, you give him a $5 or $6 million raise, and I'm sure he'll be happy for the next couple of years, because that $6 million for 2 years is $12 million. And that's more than he's going to get with the Bengals. And it's not like there's a lot of suitors just knocking down the door to offer him a contract. So if we were able to offer him something, I'm sure he would take it. But the problem is with him, even though I think if we were able to add a Trey Henderson, I think that definitely puts us in the playoffs this year. I think he puts us over the top defensively, to have two guys who can actually get to the quarterback. I think we would have a top 5 to 7 defense if we could add him. But cap space, I'm sure we could probably move some money around. But like I said, we have about $6 million. So we're about 20 million, 21 million short. You could probably ask somebody to move some money to next year, because we have a lot of cap next year. There's things we could do, but I don't really see us making that move. I know it would be a dream scenario for us Bear fans, but I still think Smith would be the best option, money-wise, production-wise. So hopefully we add another D-end. I'm not too concerned about running back, but D-end, we're still paper thin. Even trying to rotate guys, I still think we need another person. And unfortunately, like I said, I don't think we should have spent 17 million for Deo. He, to me, is worth maybe 10, 12 is pushing it. But I know he had some options besides us, so we weren't the only person. We're paying him for what we think he can become, not for what he's done. His best season, he had 8.5 sacks, and that was 2 years ago. So we're hoping that he can continually keep growing. He is a younger guy. I think he's 25 or 26 years old, but we'll see what the Bears still do. I don't think we're going to do anything until we get to OTAs. I think we'll make a move before training camp, but OTAs, I think they still want to see what we have before we make another move. But that's my opinion. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know if you would make a trade for Trey Henderson. Let me know if you would sign somebody else besides the 3 guys I mentioned. If you like the content, subscribe. Until next time, Bear fans, bear down.